Arthur Williams, the biggest counterfeiter the world has ever seen. Arthur Williams II, the legendary counterfeiter, possessed an incredible skill for producing counterfeit bills, amassing millions of dollars worth of fake currency. Astonishingly, he found himself in a predicament when he was apprehended while carrying a suitcase containing $60,000. However, much to everyone's surprise, Arthur managed to escape effortlessly, accompanied by his clever teenage son. Arthur emerged as the central figure, renowned as one of the greatest money forgers in the United States. He held a distinction no one else had achieved, the ability to replicate the elusive $1 bill. Arthur's journey into a life of crime commenced at a young age, driven by necessity. His initial transgression involved breaking into car park counters to obtain groceries and support his struggling mother. One day, upon returning home and discovering the refrigerator empty, he grew upset and questioned the reasons behind their impoverishment. Amidst a state of oppression, he embarked on a walk to clear his mind. During his stroll, Arthur encountered a car parking counter that served as a target for venting his frustrations. With a mix of anger and determination, he tampered with the counter in an attempt to unlock it. He managed to slip a tiny piece of iron into the lock hole, manipulating it back and forth until it yielded to his skillful touch. The sound of coins jiggling inside confirmed his success. Believing he could simply take the money, Arthur gathered up all the coins and proceeded to go to the store, where he made all the necessary purchases. When his mother returned home, she was taken aback by the sudden abundance of goods. Inquisitive, she questioned Arthur about their origin, and he candidly confessed to breaking into a car parking counter. However, his mother, unable to accept her son resorting to theft for their sustenance, grew angry with him. The root cause of their dire financial situation lay in Arthur's father, who had abandoned them in 1983 when Arthur was just 11 years old. Survival became their sole objective. Eventually, they were relocated to a government-backed housing project, marking a dark period in Arthur's life. Living in the housing project exposed Arthur to an environment rife with gangs and illicit activities. He formed alliances with undesirable friends and became involved in small criminal groups. Together, they executed thefts, robbing stores and car parking counters to satisfy their needs. In 1987, when Arthur was 15 years old, he encountered an old man named DaVinci. DaVinci, a friend of Arthur's mother or perhaps a secretive lover, played a crucial role in his life. One day, Arthur found himself arrested while attempting to steal a car. It was DaVinci who came to his rescue, paying the bill and securing his release from the police station. On their way back, DaVinci imparted his wisdom to Arthur, advising him to pursue more intelligent paths if he aspired to become a successful robber. DaVinci cryptically promised to reveal a better way and invited Arthur to accompany him. Curiosity piqued, Arthur accepted DaVinci's invitation. They ventured to an old warehouse-like building, its creaky elevator carrying them down to the basement, a sight akin to a workshop. Within the confines of that basement, Arthur beheld a plethora of machines, papers, and ink, a clandestine counterfeiting operation that would transform his life forever. Arthur and Natalie found themselves facing an unexpected challenge in 1996 when the US government introduced a new version of the $100 bill. This updated bill came equipped with an array of complex security features, making it considerably more difficult to counterfeit. The bill featured a watermark that became visible when held up to a light source, ink that changed color depending on the viewing angle, a security tape that turned gray under ultraviolet light, the Federal Reserve System seal, and microprinting, which consisted of tiny writings on the bill. Counterfeiting had become a widespread issue, prompting the government to release this new version with enhanced security measures. These features posed a significant obstacle for Arthur, who had been steadily printing counterfeit money and successfully navigating the risks associated with spending it. However, Arthur was not one to back down so easily. Determined to overcome the challenges presented by this new bill, Arthur devised a meticulous plan. He began by acquiring advanced printing machines, using his knowledge from his time with DaVinci and recalling the techniques he had learned. Arthur commenced his operations by printing small quantities of counterfeit bills as tests, aiming for nothing less than the highest quality. While Arthur had become adept at printing the counterfeit money, he understood that the real challenge lay in spending it without being detected. As Arthur and Natalie ventured deeper into their counterfeiting enterprise, they became aware that their pursuit of wealth and a better life would not be without risks. The world of counterfeit money was treacherous, and they needed to navigate it carefully to avoid the attention of law enforcement and other criminals seeking to exploit their operations. In their quest for financial success, Arthur and Natalie's lives became entwined with secrecy, danger, and the constant pursuit of staying one step ahead. They found themselves testing the limits of their abilities, constantly adapting to changing circumstances and evading detection. Arthur anxiously sat in his lawyer's office, clutching the police report in his hands. The words in the paper seemed like a death sentence, detailing how the police had discovered drugs in his hotel room during the raid. His future, already hanging by a thread, seemed to crumble before his very eyes. "This is impossible," Arthur insisted, his voice trembling with fear and desperation. "The door was closed when they knocked. I didn't have any drugs in my room. They must have planted them there." His lawyer, a seasoned professional with a hardened expression, carefully listened to Arthur's account. The lawyer knew that defending Arthur against such charges was crucial, but he also realized that the stakes were higher than initially anticipated. "I believe you, Arthur," the lawyer finally spoke, his voice calm and reassuring. "We'll fight these drug charges, but there's something else we need to address. The police discovered the counterfeit money." Arthur's heart sank even further. The realization of the severity of his situation hit him like a tidal wave. Counterfeiting money was a federal crime, and the penalties for such offenses were undoubtedly severe. "I know," murmured Arthur, his voice filled with guilt and regret. "I never wanted it to come to this. I just wanted a better life, to provide for my son and make up for the past." The lawyer nodded, his gaze sympathetic yet firm. "We'll do everything we can to build a strong defense. We'll challenge the legality of the search and gather evidence to prove that you were set up. But I must warn you, Arthur, the charges related to counterfeiting are serious. We'll need to fight those as well." As the lawyer outlined the legal strategy, Arthur's mind raced with the thoughts of the life he had built on counterfeit money. The luxuries, the charitable acts, and the dreams that had turned into nightmares. The path he had chosen had come crashing down upon him, exposing the consequences of his actions. Days had turned into weeks as the legal battle unfolded. The defense worked tirelessly to expose the flaws in the police's case and to prove that Arthur had been framed. They questioned the credibility of the officers involved, highlighting inconsistencies in their testimonies, and sought expert opinions on the nature of the counterfeit money. Throughout the process, Arthur's anxiety grew. The prospect of a lengthy prison sentence haunted him, along with the guilt of leading a life built on lies and deceit. He yearned for a chance at redemption, to make amends for the choices he had made. The courtroom buzzed with tension as the fate of Arthur's future hung in the balance. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. Arthur's heart pounded in his chest as he waited for the judge to read out the verdict. "Not guilty," the judge pronounced. Relief washed over Arthur like a wave. Although it was a bittersweet victory, knowing that he had escaped the drug charges but still had to face the consequences of his counterfeiting activities. However, it was also a glimmer of hope, a chance to rebuild his life on a foundation of honesty and integrity. With the legal battle behind him, Arthur made a solemn promise to himself. He would use the second chance to pursue a different path, one where he could make amends for his past deeds and create a better future, not only for himself, but for his loved ones as well. Arthur stood on the street, his heart pounding with a mixture of anger and frustration. The heated argument with his son had escalated into a public spectacle, drawing the attention of a passing police car. In that moment, he knew he had to act quickly to defuse the situation. As the police officer approached, Arthur composed himself and took a deep breath. He didn't want his son to suffer the consequences of his own mistakes, so he quickly decided to shoulder the blame and protect his son from any potential legal trouble. With a determined look on his face, Arthur stepped forward and calmly greeted the approaching officer. He assured him that everything was under control and that it was just a minor disagreement between a father and a son. The officer, wary but willing to listen, asked Arthur to explain the situation. Arthur, still on the ground collecting the scattered money, recounted the events leading up to the argument. He emphasized that it was just a momentary lapse of judgment fueled by their strained relationship and his son's personal struggles. The officer listened attentively, his eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. As the officer ran a quick check on Arthur's identity, Arthur's mind raced. He knew that if the officer discovered the truth about the counterfeit money, their lives would spiral out of control once again. The consequences would be dire, and his promise to leave the world of crime behind would crumble into dust. Minutes felt like hours as Arthur waited for the officer's response. Finally, the officer radioed for backup, and Arthur's anxiety heightened. Arthur and his son had a conflict with a police officer who was skeptical but empathic. Arthur pleaded with the officer, explaining that they had already resolved their conflict and that his son's involvement with the printed money was a foolish act of rebellion and curiosity. After a few tense moments, the officer left the scene, leaving Arthur and his son standing there with a mixture of relief and gratitude going through their heads. In the aftermath of the encounter, Arthur and his son exchanged a long, silent look, as a moment of realization and understanding settled upon them both. They made a silent pact, vowing to leave their criminal past behind once and for all. Arthur and his son, Arthur III, were both imprisoned for their involvement in money forgery. After 2.5 difficult years in prison, Arthur made a promise to himself to leave the world of crime behind and start anew. Upon his release, he returned to Chicago and took on multiple jobs to provide for his son and his mother. In 2005, an unexpected twist occurred when a well-known magazine published an article dubbing Arthur as the greatest money forgerer in the world. Arthur III decided to follow in his father's footsteps and began printing money in his own room using a scanner and a printer. The tension between father and son escalated when Arthur discovered his son's illicit activities. Their voices grew louder as their conflict spilled onto the streets, catching the attention of a passing police car. The police stopped to intervene, and Arthur hurriedly collected the counterfeit money, assuring the officer that it was merely a small dispute with his son. However, the police officer suspected more and began to question Arthur's identity, ultimately leading to his arrest. The familiar counterfeit money found in Arthur's possession drew the attention of the FBI. Arthur was taken to an FBI facility where he faced a prominent officer. While the small amount of counterfeit money held little consequence, the officer recognized the $100 bills as something more significant. Arthur was once again accused of his past crimes, and this time, the evidence was irrefutable. He received a harsh sentence of 9 years in prison. Meanwhile, Arthur III, also known as Silas, was sent to a juvenile detention center for a brief period of time. The FBI attempted to coerce him into becoming a witness against his father, but Silas remained resolute and refused to betray his own blood. Imprisoned once again, Arthur experienced overwhelming despair. He believed himself to be the biggest loser, unable to mend his fractured relationship with his son. His longing for redemption waned, and thoughts of ending his own life loomed ominously. Silas, on the other hand, returned to living with his mother, but their relationship was fraught with discord. Eventually, he left home, choosing to live on his own. Consumed by his desire to follow his father's path, Silas dedicated himself to forging money. Establishing a workshop with advanced machinery and printers, he worked tirelessly to improve the quality of his counterfeit bills. His clientele grew, and his operation thrived. In 2009, during a pivotal moment, the FBI agent stormed Silas's workshop, catching him in the act. The son had been caught red-handed, just like his father before him. The news devastated Arthur when he heard of his son's arrest. He felt overwhelming guilt, blaming himself for leading Silas down this treacherous path. Driven by a powerful desire to be close to his son, Arthur submitted a request to be transferred to Silas's prison. After a month of anticipation, the request was approved, and Arthur's heart brimmed with happiness and excitement at the prospect of seeing his son once again. They spent their years in prison side by side, forging a deep bond as they discussed their dreams and aspirations for life after their release. And that concludes the intriguing tale of the man who counterfeited $2.5 million only to be exposed by his own son, Arthur Williams. This gripping story serves as a powerful reminder of the consequences that can unfold when greed and deception intertwine. It underscores the significance of honesty, integrity, and the strength of familial bonds. Let it stand as a cautionary tale, urging us all to navigate life's temptations with wisdom and to cherish the values that guide us towards a brighter and more honorable path. If you like to hear more about people making themselves richer by ignoring the law, then make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and watch one of our other videos.